Game begin.
Hello, Michael J.
What is this?
This is the Spike Colony podcast back from holiday.
How long is our holiday, man? I mean, LobsterCon sold out in 96 seconds. Contraption has taken over MTGO. I might not make the league finals. Nobody knows anything about anything.
It's true. Our listeners have been starved for content, but sometimes you got to take a break and recharge. Just kidding. I've been furiously posting on the internet for like 2 weeks straight about Premodern. I was a guest on a Twitch stream.
I tried to watch it. Then when I tried to watch this, the Twitch stream you were on, there was no VOD of it.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll get added to YouTube. But anyways, you can follow the socials for that. I think, yeah. I mean, I guess the quick note about LobsterCon is that Dress Crew released a really excellent podcast detailing the situation. You should listen to that if you have feelings about LobsterCon. My only addition is that, I think there was at least a small cohort of just how could we have been prepared for this? And my answer to that was another podcast that Dress Crew did after this year's LobsterCon, which sold out, or very quickly. And basically it was the first, I think people are not, the time compression is a little bit crazy because we had a September LobsterCon, which is weird. We normally have it during the summer, or actually it was normally during not the summer, but then the summer became normal. But anyways, LobsterCon's been a different month of the year, back and forth. So we had a September LobsterCon that was still a primarily DFB Jared LobsterCon. That was Premodern on one day, old school on the other day, and the Premodern side event at an expensive co-working space. Then flip it around, Dress Crew run Amazing LobsterCon of this year, 2025. That was 6 months later or 8 months later. And now that was Dress Crew's first LobsterCon. So the next one, there was not really the lead time to be 365 days from now, Premodern is going to, I guess, exponentially increase in interest. Let's go ahead and put the down payment on a giant convention center to accommodate, a bunch of people. That just wasn't going to happen. So, it wasn't feasible to be able to get ahead of this situation with the resources that Dress Crew had available and the sort of fog of war. Now we know that Premodern has extremely large appeal, has the potential. I think if you asked me in even after the last LobsterCon, you're oh, hey, Lanny, how many people do you think would show up to LobsterCon 2026 if you had an infinitely sized room? I would just be
the answer is 2,000 at least, right?
Yeah, I would be I don't know, maybe 500 people instead of 300. I'm just but that's not whatever. But the fact that it could feasibly somebody should dig it up. But I think the vintage championships this year, Eternal Weekend Vintage, there's 300 to 400. It's roughly the size of a LobsterCon. So if you told me that the big yearly Premodern tournament could get more people than the big yearly vintage tournament and potentially rival Legacy, I mean, I guess we're a bit far away from a 14 rounder 2-day whatever the EW Legacy is. But anyways, we're getting close. I would have never imagined. And I guess the Magic Online launch was not a huge surprise. The devs will poke around and be oh, what's the deal with Premodern? So it was sort of written in the stars. But the fact that it when it launched, it was everyone started playing Premodern. That I just figured, people would be oh, that's neat. There's lots of silly formats on Magic Online, Momir Basic and Vanguard.
Take a breath. Okay, take a breath. Here's what I think about LobsterCon. It's still at the Dante. It's always been at the Dante. That it's at the Dante is not new information. I am fortunate, lucky enough to have friends like you and Andy made sure that I was logged into my Spice Rack account at exactly noon. Because if I had waited 5 minutes, it would have been too late, right? But I think that for the duress crew to take any flack at all, you kind of have to say, like, the 396 people or whatever that got in ahead of me, if I didn't get in, are not worthy and I am worthy. And that's like an odd position to take, I think.
Well, I wouldn't like straw man the frustrations of the people who didn't get in. I kind of like, there is a lot of misplaced anger and misdirected anger, but I think it's kind of like this. Like,
I have good friends who didn't get it. Right.
I understand. I'm
saying, like,
I'm saying it's not necessary to, characterize anything. Like, I think that, yes, it would have been nice if everybody was like rational and cool headed about the whole situation and had like some understanding. There was enough fog of war around it. I think like one of the big things, the big misconception is that and I haven't heard this mentioned. I'm surprised it hasn't been mentioned. But if you want to play in the North American or whatever, the Eternal Weekend Legacy Championships, you can play in it, right? If you want to play in the Vintage Championships, you can play in it. So rightfully so, to some extent, there's this perception that if you're going to call the tournament the Premodern Championships, you get to play in it. But the fact of the matter is that's not always going to be the case, because those events are run by giant, for-profit organizations, and the North American Modern Championships are run by volunteers. But I think it's the sort of simultaneous thing of a lot of new people getting into the format, getting really excited, seeing this tournament, and not having all the years of sort of knowledge and understanding of like what Premodern is and how it's fully grassroots. They kind of got, unfortunately, caught up in a little bit of a difference between their perception of the event, which is just like, oh, it's a championship. That just means everybody in the world gets to play in this that wants to, and we're going to battle out and see who's the champion, versus actually, no, I think you got it all wrong. We play in a church. We can't play a Sunday top 8 because of the church service.
Church. and some of it is the library on the second floor.
Yeah, and the prize is...
Some of it is the hallway near the library.
Yeah, the top prize is a defaced survival of the fittest. It's just like, okay.
You get like a squishy lobster, I think, is part of the package.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And a lot of people who have obviously been to every LobsterCon, missing out on this is, a huge disappointment that's going to make you feel super, super, heated.
I really don't want to have come off like I wasn't feeling empathetic to people who didn't get in. Like I said, I have good friends who didn't make it. I'm just saying, I just don't know that Duress Crew needs to take any flack for this.
No, they absolutely don't. What I was kind of responding to was like basically trying to be like, I understand that a lot of people had various levels of meltdowns over this news, and I think that this is all kind of simmered down and cooled off. I think the Dress Crew did a great job of addressing it. I think the reason why I brought it up, the reason why I wanted to talk about it, was just this sort of silent group of people who are probably newer. Like, this would have been their first LobsterCon, and they're like, oh, that's unusual. Like, normally when I sign up for Magic tournaments, I get to go to them. It's like, okay, well, it's not always the case. Like, it just so happens that you came at precisely the wrong time to, be able to easily sign up for this tournament in particular. I think it would have been almost like if you think about everything you would need to do as a newcomer to Premodern to successfully register for this tournament, you have to like know what Spice Rack is, you have an account, and then even then, if you don't have your credit card saved to your browser, it might take you longer than 90 seconds to enter all the numbers in. There's a lot of collateral damage here. Of course, none of it is like the blame of like any kind of malpractice by Dress Crew, but it's a tragedy all around. But look, it's going to be a blip next year, back and stronger. And then if you're out there and you're like a TO or like, I don't know, like people have mixed feelings about this, but I personally don't really give a shit if a for-profit TO runs a big Premodern event. Like we live in capitalism. Like, if we want our nice thing, it's got to make money.
Let's take a breath. let's move on to things that are less, or maybe more central to what the Spike Colony is about, which
All
is
right, deck
talking about
lists.
deck lists and attacking for 2,
No,
or in some cases attacking for 0, because I guess Ophidian is now Ophidian is joined. A wild Ophidian has entered the
okay.
battlefield.
Let's start from the big picture. Magic Online is out. The caveat on the data is that it can only track volume. It can't track conversion percentage. So we have tools and spreadsheets available to us now that are, saying Dreadnought is like 13% of 5.0s on Magic Online. The next most popular is Burn, stuff like that. That's not really saying how, obviously it's a small testament to how good the deck is. Actually, sorry. It goes Enchantress and then Burn tied for second at the current count. But that's just like the amount of trophies, right? So obviously if everyone's playing Dreadnought gets more trophies.
It's a trophy of 5.0.
It's trophies of 5.0, yeah. Everyone's playing Burn. Everybody's, going to do that. And of course, even if the same amount of people were playing Burn and the same amount of people were playing, say, Black, Blue, White Blessing, Sam Black's Blue, White Blessing, those Blue, White Blessing players, even if their win rate is 10% higher than the Burn win rate, are going to put up a lower volume of 5.0. So that's a giant caveat.
A lot of math. So why don't you just kick it with the math caveats and let's just talk about interesting things you might do in Premodern.
So these are not backed. This is not a huge backup. But here are my large observations. Mono Blue Dreadnought, pretty good deck. Probably the best deck. I don't know if anybody's been saying this, but
so the one thing that I would say is I talked to Dr. Surf and Surf himself a little bit in the last couple of weeks since this has been up, because NJ Mickle, friend of the cast, etc., has been one of the more successful players in the leagues and in the challenges, and he's been playing a weird version of Dreadnought that has sleight of hand and 1 gush and 1 impulse, and I'm like, what is going on here? And like no tide combo in the sideboard, and apparently there's at least 3 different mono blue Dreadnoughts you can play, because he played a different league where he's just like, oh, I accidentally loaded up the list. Intuition Kaplan list. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, these are all, and they are all uniquely different to one another. And so it's wild if you're just like, oh, well, Dreadnought's really good, because there's at least 3 different mono blue Dreadnought decks.
I think the differences between them are like overstated from man. No, listen. I think the differences are overstated from the pilot side, because from the opponent side, they're not really gonna like understand that they lost this specific match like on turn 4, like the specific game on turn 4, because the opponent had a 1 of thwart or like an AK instead of, like, don't get me wrong, like AK versus 0 AK is like a big difference, and like whatever. But I just want to say, like,
Factory versus no Mishra's Factory is a meaningful difference.
Yeah.
Especially if you're planning to try to beat a Dreadnought deck with Meddling Mage.
Yeah. Like, I would
bet that's a thing.
Yeah. So
that's the thing that you have pointed out to high heaven when you were a Surf and Surf stand.
Okay, so
tide combo and no tide combo is a pretty big thing, right? AK versus no AK is a pretty big thing. And Jam versus Sit There is a pretty big thing, right? Because Sit There is a different plan than Jam.
My question to you, Mike, is actually quite simple. If there were just one Dreadnought list, because in some, in some view of the world, not my personal view, but some people might view the world, there's like, you can't have 3 lists of the best deck. Like, there's one best list of the best deck. So I think, come along with me on the ride that there was one list. It would still just be the best deck, right? The fact that there's 3 is just salt in the wound, but the wound.
Brother, I need to ancestor recall you for a second, right? Number 1, what is a deck? I feel like we have this problem, and I think that WotC made the problem by building decks. And like when Magic was much more virginal, like more than 20 years ago, when Magic was much more virginal, Magic was about cards And then people named how they put the cards together, and they named them like PT Junk or Dread Panda Roberts or, Richmond Gun. And you might not necessarily know what Richmond Gun was, but like it was about cards, man. And when a deck, let's call it a deck in quotes, did really well, you'd have the head of R&D, like Randy Buehler, would say something along the lines of, the 5 best cards in the format are Demonic Consultation, Necropotence, Duress, Force of Will, and and I don't know, whatever the 5th one was, and Dark Ritual. This deck plays 5 of them, and the next best deck only plays 4 of them, right? Like, that is what makes it the best deck. Or is it like, Necropotence is the best card. This deck breaks Necropotence better than this deck, ergo it's the best deck. And when you're looking at these situations where you might have a format that has a black-blue Necropotence deck, a different black-blue Necropotence deck, a black-red Necropotence deck, and a mono-black Necropotence deck, and they all function very differently, right? You have to, like, they don't even kill the same way. One of them, does a finite amount of damage. One of them doesn't do a finite amount of damage. Like, you have to, and I don't think that the Dreadnought situation is so different, right? Like,
yeah, you're just making like a really excellent case for banning Dreadnought from the format. It's like, it's just like this card Necropotence. It didn't really matter.
Tricks, Pebbles, and the Drain Life Skittering Scourge deck are 3 distinct different decks that existed at the same time. They did not win the same way. One of them, you could plow their creatures. One of them, you were getting Drain Life, and they fueled Necropotence with Drain Life. One of them was fast. One of them gained 20 life in the middle of a combo, but had finite damage capability.
Okay, so
right?
so
the 3 Dreadnought decks we're talking about are literally as different from one another as these 3 decks.
All right, talk to me about the three versions and what the difference is.
Okay, so like if you look at them and you're not like you've never talked to the doctor, or you didn't have a conversation with someone who's doing well with these decks in the various leagues, or you don't know Dave Kaplan personally, right? Like, you might look at these decks and say something along the lines of, oh, that's interesting, he played Sabo's Web, right? Like, or, oh, I wonder why he played AK, or I wonder why he didn't play AK, right? But the thing is, there's these 3 different decks. The Kaplan Jam deck now featuring 1 intuition, right? Like, that's its big claim. This deck is much more optimized to like hard mulligan and jam for the combo. It doesn't have a plan B, right? So I think like that's a big deal. It doesn't have a plan B. So if you can contain all the Dreadnoughts, although I've watched Dave Kaplan play a lot, and no one ever contains all of his Dreadnoughts, so I don't even know why I'm saying this sentence, then you're going to be successful. The classic LobsterCon 2024 version, which is what we've called Dr. Surf and Surf, I think it's largely morphed into an AK deck, right? It didn't used to be an AK deck. The Hootenanny Blue version had AK in the sideboard, but this is much more of a control deck that sometimes jams, right? Like, I can jam sometimes, right? But it wins through like a methodical picking apart of the opponent, and it just generates a huge amount of card advantage with Flash of Insight and Gush and potentially Parallax Tide after sideboarding. And it just so happens to kill you with a 12/12 artifact creature, unless it's 2 board and it kills you with a 2/2 artifact creature, right? This is a philosophically different deck than a deck that is optimized to jam quickly. And then there's this new deck called Polar Shrimp, which I just don't understand how it is constructed. It has like an annul, it has a Gush, and Impulse. I'm like, this goes against all of the precepts that every other Dreadnought deck, every other mono blue Dreadnought deck we've ever looked at has, and also doesn't have the Tide combo. So I separately asked David, and I separately asked Noah, what the hell is going on here? They're like, that's kind of slower, right? Like, and they're like, well, instead of jamming on turn 2, we just jam on turn 4, but we always get it, right? Like, that's the answer. We just jam on turn 4, but we always get it. And they have Sleight of Hand and 1 Impulse. Like, this is in some ways my dream of a Dreadnought deck, except for it has none of the features of a Dreadnought deck that I've come to love. So you have to tell me about Polar Shrimp, because Noah talks about it in the Bushi Discord all the time. I literally talk to to the doctor about it, and I still don't understand why this deck is good, but it's one of the best performing ones. And I'm telling you, Lanny, these 3 decks are as different from one another than the 3 Necropotence decks that I talked about from 2000, 2001. And if you can't see that, then you're the kind of person who thinks that an Elvish Lyrist or an Emerald Charm is going to save you from the Tricks combo, right? Like, I can stop that. I'll just Emerald. Oh, you gave what? Wait, what? You force of willed that.
I guess I am just like the dissenting party on the magnitude of the difference simply because of the following 2 things, which I think are correct no matter what 75 cards that include Dreadnought, Stifle, and Vision Charm that you sleeve up. The first thing that I think is true is that you should mulligan until you're opening in the dark in game 1. I think you should mulligan to your opening hand contains a combo piece and at least a way to look at enough cards to find a second combo piece.
Just stop on this one for a second, right? That requires a fair amount of local knowledge to the format to make the statement. And B, I tried that and I was playing the Raska deck, which is not, or whatever, the classic transformational Raska deck. And, I got that on the play in the top 8 and I still managed to lose. But it depends on your version. The Kaplan deck is more optimized for doing that than the others, although all of them can do it. That is a very good point. They can all do it.
I think they can all do it. I don't think
Polish Shrimp wants to try to do that.
I think absolutely. So I'll go into why, which is just that like there are a core of cards that all are super good on turns 1 and 2.
Oh,
those are.
I'm not arguing with you.
Those are as follows: Portent, which is common to all Dreadnought decks; the Dreadnought combo, which is common to all Dreadnought decks, and like the other lever, I suppose, is like some number of days, which generally levers between.
Play any days? It's 0 dazes.
I think it just kind of depends. Like it plays n amount of dazes. That's like 1 or 2.
0.
I don't think it's 0, but
I'm looking
obviously
at his 9th place deck from 2 days ago. There are 0.
Okay, well, I would play.
It is optimized completely differently.
I mean, he's got 3 dazes in the, or is this the 17?
No, he accidentally registered the Kaplan deck in one of the tournaments.
All right. In any case, you can play an amount of days. I mean, I don't have any points about playing a Dreadnought deck with 0 dazes. I don't think 0 is like the correct amount of dazes.
It's not up to you to say whether or not this deck is built correctly or not. It is a different deck than the deck that you won the Lobster inside.
I'll set aside the amount of dazes. And then combinations of gush and foil. I agree with you that it's
this deck has 1 gush.
Yeah. I agree with you that I think that's probably a little bit puzzling. Then there's like kind of the subset of cards that are hanging out in the if my opponent's just playing some green deck that doesn't kill me on turn 4, right? I can fit, or like a mid-range deck. I can fit in like an impulse. I might be able to cast. I can cast 1 or 2 AKs, and I can jam on turn 4, and all my counter spells are on now, right? So I can go like Dreadnought, Vision Charm, counterspell, backup, untap, counterspell again. Gush, foil, that kind of stuff. So every single
this is like kind of how Fran played when he was playing the blue-white deck. He was like he never jammed on turn 2.
The blue-white deck was a little bit of like this other thing, but I agree with you that there could be a style component here. But I think that even as time progressed, like if you read Fran's primer on the blue-white deck, it still had the general advice that your like opening hand needs to contain like some action, like it needs to contain like some sort of form of narrative, right? You can't win games of Premodern.
You stop right now. You are talking out of both sides of your mouth like a politician. Having some action is something every player who has any modicum of ability in any format knows to do. Okay, you said keep mulliganing until you can
No,
shove it
yeah,
down your throat on turn
yeah. Well,
okay? Those are very different.
By
the way, when I started doing that, I didn't really ever lose. So I agree with you, but you need to have some local knowledge of the format to know this.
But I'm just saying that this is a belief, right? Other people don't have to agree with me, and other people don't, right? We do keeper moles.
They won't win as much. That's fine. They won't win as much.
We have a Dreadnought Discord. We do keeper moles. People are like, oh, like one island portent, gush counterspell, whatever, and they're like keeper mole, and I'm just like mole, like it's like have you seen
cards?
Have you? Yeah, that's that kind of.
Also, if your play draw is different, that's the thing.
Yeah, play draw is different.
If you're mulligan, you could hard mulligan to 4 cards on the play, and your opponent, like if they're elves, they're literally not going to.
Yeah, they still can't win. Yeah, but okay,
right?
So
like that's the.
But my point overall is that like every Dreadnought deck under the sun can utilize this behavior. Now, whether or not a Dreadnought deck containing 0 dazes wants to is questionable, but I will point out that when you start cutting your impulses for ops and sleight of hands, you improve your ability to keep those kinds of hands, right? Because then all of a sudden, all your hands that have combo get to start on a cantrip, right, to find protection. All your starting hands that are close to combo are going to cast a few more cantrips in a row into maybe turn 3. So like, granted, I think it's much more powerful to go turn 2 impulse, turn 3 jam. If you go turn 1 portent, turn 2 sleight of hand portent, turn 3 jam, that does a good impulse impression with the added flexibility of casting more stuff on turn 1.
I said, I really like so many of the things going on in this list, but it's just not optimized to jam. It doesn't have any dazes, right? So I'm like, I feel like if you're going to play all the ops and sleight of hand and cut the impulses, that's a deck that wants to go hard, right? So, this deck doesn't want to go hard. So it has 1 gush.
I think that if you invest, like you don't have to invest all your points into the turn 2 jams. Like you don't have to do sort of like what we've identified to be like the Kaplan end of the spectrum, because you could go super Kaplan, right? You could just not play Flash of Insight. Like we believe Flash of Insight to be like the best card that you can play in your Dreadnought main deck.
Play Flash of Insight?
Exactly, he does. He plays 2. Because he can intuition for the 2. Like so every Dreadnought designer has some sort of belief about what length of game they expect to play and what navigating those games look like. And it's sort of like this sort of like bespoke, like, oh, my game is like, I'm going to hit every land drop and I'm going to like AK for 3 and I'm going to like, play this predicted game. But they have this imagination that's built on top of the foundation, which is just that like, I'm going to win a lot casting Dreadnought on turn 2 and casting a bunch of spells that exist in all Dreadnought decks, like Foil, like Vision Charm, like Counterspell, and Portent.
No. This is where I want to stop you, okay? Everybody, whether they were Tricks, Pebbles, or classic, Brian Davis, lots of swamps, corrupt, concede to Bob Maher in the finals Necropotent.
Started with activating a Necro, yeah.
Got Necropotence in play and paid life to draw cards, okay? Even in the universe of people just playing Necropotence, right? Just a Necropotence deck with Skittering Scourge. You take it back to Standard a few months before that. I'm in the top 4 of the regionals. It's a long ass regional championship. It was the biggest regional championship of all time at the time, and it was pretty funny. Like going into the late rounds of the Swiss, it was Mike Guptill and Mike Dene, who were both level 5 judges of originally, I think, before they retired from the judge program. But they were both there. Like one was the tournament organizer and the other one was the head judge. And Randy Bueller was there, right? And they're just watching all these games. And Mike says to me, he's just like, the lower the number at the table, the higher the number.
The Necro, yeah.
He's like, I have noticed this all day, right? So Randy wrote an article about this. It was my top 4 match. I'm playing Hatred against a Necro opponent, right? And he has like a Strom called Taskmaster in play, which is like 4/3. Every black creature gets -1 or whatever. So I just can't even really win. Like it's in play. He gets Necro down and he Necros, and I'm like, I can't believe what a baby you are, right? You have this situation in play and you're just Necroing for 3, right? Like it's like, and And I'm like, that's how you got to the top 4 table, and he's like, oh, you're right. He like necros the proper amount, so I untapped and killed him. And and Randy was just like, that was the best Jedi mind trick. I was like, there was no conceivable way for me to win, right? But I'm like, if he necros for like 2 more, like I can angle him for Xaxes and he won't see it, right? Like, because I was just like, I'm gonna set this up, ritual 2 curse scrolls out or whatever, and activate them like before he can corrupt me. I don't remember how I did it, but he was like 99% to win from his board position, and I got him to bring it down by playing on the ego of someone who had been necroing hard all day, right? He actually ended up winning the regional championship because he got game 3. Anyway, long story short, all of those necro players of all the different styles know to pay life to draw cards, right? When you're like, all of these Dreadnought decks are built on the premise that if you get Dreadnought and Stifle, your opponent will be facing down to 12.
Yeah.
It has
my point. My point is that the lists are not like, they don't diverge from each other at that point. So I'm trying to like identify the point.
Like if you look at them, like you can divine this. You can divine the narrative.
Mike, are we a force and leverage podcast?
Yes,
or are we
a force and leverage podcast. Because that's why I'm asking the question.
You're talking about
these
style.
Are force and leverage questions.
No, you're just talking about style. Like it's like literally, like I have played every version of Dreadnought, and every single time, this is what I do. I mulligan until I have Dreadnought combo, like in my future, and starting
Lanny.
September of last year, I cast all my cantrips before I jam. I do
Lanny.
this every single
Lanny.
time.
I would like to point 2 things out to you. Number 1, you don't understand control. So maybe you don't understand the Polar Shrimp deck. Maybe you're looking at this, you're just like, does not compute. Does not compute. Maximize combo potential. So that's one thing. The second thing that I will point out to you is, yeah, they can all freaking get you on turn 2, but I just want to say it is a disservice to our listeners who expect us to know a little bit about Premodern, maybe in some cases more than them, maybe in some cases enough that they can vehemently disagree with us while shaking their fists, to be like, oh yeah, Dreadnought's doing well. It's not like
no.
It's not like, you know, Hermit Dreadnought is doing well.
No.
Right? These are mono blue decks.
No.
Some of them have Black Vice.
This is the reason why it's interesting to say that Dreadnought doing well. The joke is that there's nothing new about this, but the thing that it's helping to identify, it's in the process of identifying, is that like now that we have hundreds of matches of Premodern getting played every single day, Dreadnought is withstanding the initial test, because metagames have to adjust and people have to start playing decks that beat Dreadnought. And the thing that's crazy is exactly what you said. There's Dreadnought decks out there. There's like a guy who's playing no gushes, no anything, just Dreadnought combo and Tide combo. 4 Chain of Vapor, 4 Parallax Tide, 4 Dreadnought, 8 Stifles, 4 counter spells. Yeah, 4
Black Vice.
And he 5-0'd like 3 times.
2 leagues. Yeah, 3.
Yeah, well, 2 times, and then somebody net decked him, and then trophied with the net deck. Okay, so the first test that's happening here is just that like Dreadnought's insane, and I think that you can start with this thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, I've got, you know, I'm Taekwondo master and I am a Kung Fu master, right? And you're like, oh, well, my Taekwondo, and the third guy shows up and he's like, oh, well, actually, I know Jiu-Jitsu. And actually, the fourth person is like, oh, guys, have you heard of Capoeira? And then you like walk over and you're like, man, these guys are really strong. It's like, what's the secret? It's like, oh, they're both really good at punching extremely hard. They punch harder than the other guys. It doesn't matter their plan is to punch. Like,
so I need to talk for a second. I think, you know, when like Socrates is like, you know you're wise when you know you don't know anything, or he said something along those lines. I think I've gotten to the age where I'm like, I know nothing, right? My favorite
Flame Rift, yeah.
My favorite basketball player is Sam Merrill, right? If you look at like Sam Merrill's line, he went 1-6 last night against the Spurs. He's my favorite player. Landy Ho put me onto him when he was still in the G League. He's just like, this guy's really good. And I'm like, he's a freaking chucker and he's low percentage, right? Like, he's exactly the kind of basketball player I always say that I hate. Although my all-time favorite player is J.R. Smith, who is a crazy freaking chucker and also a crazy man, right? So Sam Merrill's my favorite player. He went 1-6 last night. The Cavs are on a horrible losing streak for like the last couple of weeks while Sam Merrill was injured. Kenny Atkinson, the reigning coach of the year, said, look, we're like 12-5 when Sam's in the lineup. I don't understand how to evaluate basketball players anymore. If I looked at his line, I'd be like, he's just a chucker. But he does so many things that are like conducive to the best team winning. And when he's not there, they don't do those things, right? And like, you don't see them. Now, that's part A of this. Part B is we have spent the last 3 years talking about like, oh, first of all, you have to play meddling mages. These mono blue decks are bad. Like, oh, why is he focused on jamming? You have to play slowly. Like, that was a thing that you were ranting about at one point. Then you were like, oh, I am now addicted to Mishra's Factory, which allows me to defeat meddling mage. And the ingenious version of Dreadnought has Parallax tied. And now I look at these decks, and they're just the donkey deck that I played go like 6-0 or 8-0 in games that I played way back with Dreadnought before I knew anything. And I always jammed on turn 2. And I wrote an article about why you should play Sleight of Hand. Okay? Like, I had a boomerang in my deck. Okay? Well, these are just the donkey decks that I played before I knew anything. I think we don't know anything. I think all the things we've been talking about are just words. And people, I don't know, man. Some of them punch really hard.
Okay,
like,
so
right. Like, I don't know. Sam Merrill's my favorite player. He went 1-6, and then we won by like 20 against one of the best teams in the league.
Right. So my first bit, Mike, is don't say the quiet part out loud. Of course, we know. Of course, we know what we're talking about.
I am being vulnerable to the audience. These decks right now are just the donkey stuff that I played 3 years ago before Lanny told me I didn't understand anything about Dreadnought. When he did Iron Man versus the Hulk, I'm like, here, play my Dreadnought deck. And he was just like, no, it doesn't even have Meddling Mage. And he wrote one of the greatest Magic the Gathering articles of all time about my Sleight of Hand Boomerang deck. Okay? Like, if I didn't have
I showed up with like 15 cards I wanted to add to the deck. And I don't want to change the sleeves. Anyways, you're right, for sure. I mean, like, I think that what's one thing that we did talk about during like the blue-white versus mono-blue era was just that, like, the problem is with us saying that blue-white is better is just that mono-blue is also still just really good. Like, you can't make a great case for blue-white when you're like, oh, well,
the second best deck is also Dreadnought. And it's 5 cards different in the main.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we
4 of
always
those cards are Flooded Strand.
So we were always just like, okay, well, look, Meddling Mage is really excellent against Sword Splashers decks, and it can deal 20 damage. Whereas, like, it's at the time it was trivial for your Replenish deck to just be like, well, I'm going to put 5 Seal of Cleansings into play. Your Dreadnought opponent will never win. Those were simpler times. But yeah,
some of us were playing Abeyance back in 2022.
Yeah, but it helps. It helps with putting Seal of Cleansings into play as well. So the other question is exactly that. It's just like, okay, well, what's important here? Is it important that Dreadnought has a version with intuition, a version with fewer gushes and a thwart, and a version that has AKs and tied sideboard? It's like that's kind of important. It's very interesting. There's a Discord you can join. It's the Dreadnought Discord. You can find the link on the big Premodern Discord. Has a link to the little Premodern Discords. Okay, so it's a little Premodern Discord. You can go, $10 to charity, get to see the Bible, learn everything you need to know about Dreadnought. The result of that is that you will be like winning 1 or 2% more games than the guy who plays 4 tides. Like, yeah, it's just plays whatever. And like, don't get me wrong. Like, you're right. The purpose of the podcast was for me, like, when I won the side event last year, Like
It's
my whole
more than a
thing.
year ago at this point.
September of 2024. My revelation was just like, oh my god, like stasis was easy. Like I lost against Enchantress, but like I had a plan that was just like so crystallized, and I could have won against them. And I beat all these other decks. I just like I beat Grotog. I beat Blue White Control. Like if you told me in 2023 that my Dreadnought deck can beat Blue White Control, Grotog, plausibly beat Enchantress, Goblins, Oath Ponza, and Stasis in the same tournament, like I would have said, like, dude, you're going 0-6. But instead, I went 5-1 against that spread of like 6 supposed.
Well, you didn't know about stuff like Vision Charming your opponent. Like it was, you could do what? I thought this card was just a cheaper reality ripple.
Granted, I knew about that, but I didn't know about definitely a few of the finer points. Like, I definitely wasn't countering Fact or Fictions, right? Little stuff like that.
You weren't dazing an impulse.
I wasn't dazing impulses, right? So it's like kind of I mean, we're just talking about the same thing as the blue white versus mono blue. It's just like, well, dude, you can unlock all this potential.
What I'm saying is, yes, I think like there's a lot of games on the fringes that you wouldn't have won if you didn't talk to the doctor, right?
I've just outlined. I wouldn't have won 5 of the 5 matches that I won. Okay, I wouldn't have won 5 matches in a top 1 performance. Like that's why it was such a big deal for me. But now we live in the world where we just have these things and we know these things and we can lean even harder into them. We can play accumulated knowledge. We can play. Thwart.
Last round of Swiss when I was playing just classic Doctor with AK. I beat a Goblins deck. I won game 1. I was on the play. I got badly annihilated in sideboarded game 1 where he just drew, because sideboard cards are so insane. Right? Red Blast and Tinkerer at the same time is really hard to beat. And I'm like, I don't even know. I'm sideboarding all this nonsense. And then I just jammed him and won game 3. Right? Like, I did nothing good. Like all my sideboard cards were worse than just jamming. I'm like, I'm on the play. Maybe 1 free counter spell is enough.
All right. So in conclusion, agree. Punching harder. Yeah. No style.
To jam. And Mulligan, I think so now I'm thinking like maybe I should just switch to Kaplan. I have to say, when I played the Doctor with AK, I didn't lose very many games in the Swiss. But all the games that I ever tried to win an AK game, where I'm just like drawing extra cards and out resourcing my opponent, I lost N-1. I won 1 game like that. Every other time I did it, my opponent overwhelmed me with the power of their Premodern deck. Their plan came together or whatever, right? Like I'm drawing. I'm like, how could I lose? I just AK'd for 2 and then AK'd for 3, and they're like, make 1,000 squirrels.
Yeah, but this is this is just kind of like noise because like sometimes it lines up, sometimes it doesn't, and the reason that Kaplan likes playing the list that he likes is because he likes lining it up. And again, at the end of the day, you've got like a bunch of guys. They've got massive biceps and triceps, and they just punch a little bit differently, but they all punch hard. I think I want to cap this off. I don't want to do 100 minutes on this, but I just want to say quickly, like, if you're going to talk about banning a card from the Premodern format, you are not a serious person if you think Tide should be banned instead of Dreadnought. Like, that's just bottom line. Like, I like can't believe I'm still reading about Tide when Dreadnought is just playground stomping.
It's clearly the strongest card it's the strongest card in the format. Like, it's weird because it's just like, all right, Swords to Plowshares is like the glue that keeps the entire format together.
Yeah.
And it is weird that many of the best decks don't play Swords to Plowshares, but its presence is like all together, what puts it together, right?
So I want to segue this into a question for you to kind of cap off this Dreadnought topic, which is that you have a Pauper podcast. It's called Princes of Pauper, starring friend of the podcast, Rich Busey. You guys mentioned that Pauper has a sort of supposed best deck in this like Jund mid-range deck that like plays like a 4-drop.
It is the least offensive best deck of all time.
And you're like, least of it. So this would be like a good example of a format that is kind of low powered and it has a best deck and it doesn't seem to offend anyone. Like nobody's trying to ban that deck, right?
No.
So my question to you is
the
that
things that people want to ban in Pauper are things that I think are like, I don't even know if they win that much more than everything else. I think they're just annoying.
So this is a great analogy for Premodern. So my question to you is, if we have Premodern and Dreadnought, like how offensive is Dreadnought as a best deck in the format?
I think it is 0 level of offensiveness. I also think Replenish is 0 level of offensiveness. The only decks that I thought were offensive and that like maybe would disrupt the format flow or should get banned. And I didn't say anything should get banned, but like the only ones that gave me that feeling are Tinkerfling and Enchantress in the last year. I lost to Enchantress a ton. And I think more specifically, I lost to SWB.
So did everyone. Yeah.
Okay. So I lost to SWB in 3 different tournaments, playing 3 different decks. Okay. And 2 of which were supposed to be favored against him. Okay. So I'm like, this deck seems prohibitively strong because none of the decks that he beat me with was Ion Dreadnought. Right. And this is like, I'm targeting Dreadnought Enchantress and he beat me on other decks. Okay. So that one made me feel kind of like, I think this deck is prohibitively strong and I'm not sure what to ban. Right. That's one. The second thing was Tinkerfling because like when Landy Ho won the first league championship, he just raffle stomped the entire room from the 8th seed, meaning he was going second the entire time. And he did it largely with Mulligan discipline. The only game that I saw him like lose, like legit, Rich Busey actually beat him. And Lan was like a little, he wasn't bloodthirsty on his Mulligan.
Yeah, he kept a one-lander against the land destruction deck.
Yeah, so he's just like, I think I get. No, he did not get there, right? So, so those 2 decks, and then I was like, oh, I'll play you, Lan and you together tricked me into playing Tinkerfling, and I did so badly, so I couldn't put it up. And that day at the biggest Premodern tournament that's not LobsterCon that any of us played in, it was just dominated by the slowest, boringest Terravore decks. Right? So I'm like, okay, I don't know anything because you don't even need to cast spells. You could just draw, I don't know. You could mulligan to 4 the entire day all the way to the finals, which was flabbergasting to me. The level of ability.
I mean, at the end of
the level of discipline and the level of ability to do that is flabbergasting to me. But people just sat there and it was all about whether or not their Sylvan library stayed in play was who won the game. And I'm like, this card is barely playable.
Yeah. But what deck won that tournament, like, Mike? What deck won that tournament?
What player won that tournament with
what deck?
What deck? Okay.
Yeah.
Kaplan Jam played by Kaplan himself.
Mono Blue Stifle not won that tournament. Okay. So you're not offended.
I've never been offended by Dreadnought. Why would you be offended by Dreadnought? Every deck can beat it if they want to. The reality is people don't want to beat it enough. When I talk about loving Modern, and at this point I haven't loved Modern since like 2017 or something, right? It's been a long time since I loved Modern. 2018, 2019 maybe. I would algorithmically decide if I was going to play in a big Modern tournament solely based on the performance of Dredge the previous 2 weeks, right? If Dredge did well, I just didn't play, right? I knew how to beat everything, and I had an amazing win rating as everything, but I could never beat Dredge. And in order to beat Dredge, I had to like make my deck not good anymore. To me, my definition of a good burn deck, I couldn't make my deck good anymore. And so I had to give up too much percentage against the rest of the field. So what I needed the rest of the room to hold down Dredge so that I wasn't playing against Dredge and I could beat up on humans and Tron and control decks the way that I knew how, right? So if you want to beat Dreadnought, everybody can. There was a recent contraption challenge that was won by Burn, and God bless him, he had 1,000 blasts, 1,000 overloads.
It actually wasn't too crazy. It was 4 Mog Salvage, 3 Overload, and 2 Red Blasts. So that totals actually just 9 sideboard cards.
Yeah, but a bunch of them are Overloads and Mog Salvage, and there's still blasts in the mix.
Yeah, they are the good ones. Okay, so
no, they're not the good ones. They're the ones that are good against Dreadnoughts.
No, that's what I mean.
Specifically good against
Dreadnoughts. That's what I mean. Like Mog Salvage, that's what I mean. Mog Salvage is the good ones. If you want to hear about Mog Salvage, you can go all the way back to Spike Colony's episode, a very poorly argued case against Overload. One of the classics.
Is that the one where I like bitch about not having Mog Salvage because I got tricked into playing like Overload?
I don't. It's
Mike Harris in the first round, but then I won the tournament.
You can listen. You can listen.
I'm the master of burn.
You can listen on your podcasting app. More things that have emerged. Psychotog, Reanimator, and Allurin are like decks that we don't hear a lot of and that are kind of making a little bit of a fuss in the online streets. What do you think about each or any of those decks?
I think Psychotog is a little bit artificial for two reasons. One, it's always been good against Dreadnought and Premodern, right? It's like one of its good matchups. And B, LSV played it on a stream. And I think like, especially if you're a tourist, you don't know anything about the format, you see one of the top 5 players of all time embracing the format with Psychotog, and then he does pretty well with Psychotog. Maybe Psychotog gets a little bit more, fuel in its shoes than it would have in the abstract. So I think that's kind of part of it. If this were the natural pre-modern environment, and I hate to put it this way, but if this were the natural pre-modern format with like more the rock, you just won't see as much Psychotog.
But right? You don't think that maybe there's something going on here where like Psychotog is like good because the rock is like bad and people stopped playing it quicker online than do on paper? Like, cause
I actually think they just never picked it up online.
People picked it up. There's literally like a guy who has like a 5-tweet thread that was just like, here are some observations about the weaknesses of the rock strategy.
Like, welcome to Spike Colony for the last 3 years.
He's like, number 1, the mana base is not very good.
Welcome to my first week of playing Premodern, and everyone was yelling at me.
You don't draw that very many cards. Number 3, you don't have that much power. Number 4.
Okay.
Look,
but would you agree that for the preponderance of the format, people have been playing the rock at a super normal level relative to its deserved win rate?
No, people play it way too much.
No, that is at a super normal level, like not a subnormal level.
A correct amount of rock players is 0.
Yeah,
so it should just. So
but it's a third of the people in every tournament.
If you believe the rock to be the natural predator to Psychotog, and the rock should be at 0,
it's not quote the natural predator to Psychotog, but it is pretty good against Psychotog. Right? Like the cards Cabal Therapy and Pernicious Deed are pretty good against a deck with 4 threats.
My point is quite simple, is that I would not begin an argument against the power of Psychotog by saying like, well, you can lose to the rock, because guess how many rock players are going to see in round 2 when you're 1-0 at the tournament?
Look, dude, some of them have to win. They have like a 46% win rate. Okay. That's close to 50%.
I'll take those odds.
There's way too many of them, right?
If all I have to do is fade the rock, then I'm taking Psychotog to LobsterCon, man. Like, come on.
I hate to break it to you. The rock is also pretty good against Dreadnought. Like, it has always been pretty good against Dreadnought. The one that's not good against Dreadnought is a stupid survival rock that you had me on.
So you're saying,
and I lost the belt match to Kaplan.
So you're saying that the metagame should be Stifle Knot beats Red Decks, beats Psychotog and the Rock, beats Stifle Knot and Psychotog.
I mean, if you're going to start talking about stuff like Reanimator, I think Reanimator is probably great against the Red Deck.
Yeah, well, the Red Deck has a lot of predators.
And yet it's one of the most popular and profitable decks to play in these online leagues.
What do you think is going on with Reanimator? I think Red, you can always just be... Red has always had a huge presence online. It's typically the cheapest deck to build. It's typically the easiest deck and the fastest deck to play. So Red's going to be slightly overrepresented. I'm impressed by Red, but I'm not too surprised.
I have a different take on this. If you just to borrow a line from Knives Out, like, I'm going to beat you because you're trying to win and I'm trying to play a beautiful game, right? The Red Deck plays a beautiful game, and when you're one with the Red Deck, I think it is different than being one with any other deck I've ever played. Like, you're like Enchantress, you're drawing so many extra cards, you don't even know what to do with them. You're discarding the hand size every turn. The number of mistakes that you can make is like infinite, and you still have infinite material, right? Like, when you're playing when you're playing 12-12, like you said, what percentage of your games are just I punched harder than them in the first two turns? Like 75%, right? Like the amount of margin that you have to play with is so different. The red deck is so beautiful. Like it's not it can beat anything, and it's not overpowered, and it has all these different game plans. I think that if you want to feel something about playing Premodern, that especially if you're a tourist or you're a newcomer and it is different than, contemporary Magic, the red deck is a great place to do that, right? Like you have all these cool things that you can do. It feels like playing Magic. You're interacting with your opponent, except when you're not interacting with your opponent. And you really can beat anything. Like if you want to be like the Mog Salvage Overload guy, you can beat the horrible matchup even, right? And like it's just also the Mike Tyson quote, right? They all have their plan or whatever. You just punch them in the face with a fire blast, and that's part of it. It touches so many parts of the freaking animal. I think that that's part of it, Lanny. Like if everyone was just optimized, maybe we would see leagues that were all different Dreadnought decks against each other only. But we're not. You see the red decks because the red decks play a beautiful game.
I don't know. I think that the red deck's like a good deck, and then it's like play volume just puts it a little bit higher in frequency than
but it's
than
not
an equivalent
it's
deck.
not like IRL, right? Like if I want to play elves, or if I want to play Terravore decks IRL, it costs me thousands of dollars to play those decks. And if I want to play the red deck, I probably already owned the fetch lands. So it costs me basically nothing.
The force is actually similar online. So red deck is like 100 tickets, and many of the tier decks are over 400 because of like the price fluctuation right now. So like that's also means that you're seeing more red. And then again, a red player is just going to complete more matches of Magic than the equivalent player with the equivalent winning.
Stop with the math. We're talking about a beautiful game. This is a vibes podcast about force and leverage.
It's a vibes. No, it's you have only talked about style. You have talked about style.
This is a vibes podcast about force and leverage. 100%
Stop
with the math.
I'm talking about force and leverage. You're talking about style. What do you think about Reanimator?
I'm looking at one of these Reanimator lists, and God bless him, man. I don't know what Dragon Mage does. I have to read Dragon Mage. I assume this is a card that Darwin Castle will have made the Pro Tour Hall of Fame with or whatever. I don't know. I think it's super cool. Blade.
I would. So you're looking.
So let me say this,
Mike. You're looking at a 2-2 result from a like paper like melee event. I would like try to direct your attention to like a League 5-0 where people are just doing Putrid Imp. Putrid Imp reanimate my.
This deck has Putrid Imp in it.
Mike, listen. You are looking at a deck list that went 2-2 at a random paper event. I would like to direct your attention to the results from people who are playing regular old Reanimator, like Swamp, Lotus Petal, Putrid Imp, pitch my Phantom Nishoba, unmask you.
Reanimate. Obviously that deck's great against red. It's amazing against Stasis. Like Stasis could never beat this deck ever in a million years. And all the creatures are smaller than 12/12.
So you think that
that's my analysis?
You think its game against Stasis is the reason why it might be seeing some success when Stasis is actually not even on the front page of this metagame?
Dude, I don't know. It's a powerful deck. Like it's a super good high roll deck.
All right, good talk. We covered Psychotog.
No, right. It's a better high roll deck
Reanimator.
Than 12/12.
We covered Psychotog, Reanimator. I mean, I think it's interesting that people are finding more success with Reanimator than we've come to expect from it. Because basically my expectation is that Reanimator sees absolutely no success. And like I would expect like 0 5-0s from Reanimator decks. And the fact that there are like a few plus like maybe a 12th place finish in a challenge makes me think that there might be something happening with this Reanimator deck that we haven't been previously clued in on. Either that or there's just like a lot of burn, like you said. Maybe it's just beats.
It's great
burn.
against burn, and it's just a great high roll deck, Lanny. Like if you're a tourist or if you're not that good or whatever, you play high roll decks. That's what Chapin used to teach me. He said, look, if you're just going to roll dice, at least roll the dice that have the biggest numbers on them. Like this has the second biggest numbers.
I think that is not really that compelling of a story behind this particular result, just because like Dreadnought is a Reanimator deck in exactly
Yes,
the same
it
way.
is bigger. It is a better high roll deck. I am not disagreeing with that statement, but it's like you were saying before. The best deck might be blue white Dreadnought, but the second best deck is mono blue Dreadnought. And
Okay.
it turns out there's 3 of them. Like this is like it's not the best deck, but it also has high dice.
What do we think about Alurin?
It's disaster. Like I don't care if it has 5-0s. I don't think it's good.
I am definitely a little bit confused about Alurin because like there is a survival deck that wins when it resolves Survival of the Fittest, and it's called Elves. And if that deck doesn't win enough when it resolves Survival of the Fittest for you, then there's another deck that wins when it resolves Survival of the Fittest or Hermit Druid, and it's called HFEB. And yet, I will say that I am on board for a deck that has Survival of the Fittest and 3 copies of Meddling Mage, because I think that is
the true route to victory. I will tell you, in my heart of hearts, I understand why people want to play Alurin. And it's not for win rate standpoint. I figured this out when Javier did well in a paper pre-modern tournament a few years ago playing Alurin. And I called up my old teammate, Saul Malka. I said, what is the definition of the rock? And he said something like, oh, it has Llanowar Wastes. And he just said like 2 or 3 cards, like Llanowar Wastes and Cabal Therapy. And I'm like, okay, what about this? Does this count? Because I was kind of thinking the Alurin deck can just scratch all of the rock itches. And
there are win. 2 Wall of Blossoms and 4 Wall of Roots in this Alurin deck. So
it scratches a lot of. It's just if you think about High Tide, right? The classic High Tide from Extended, not like Pauper High Tide or whatever you have later in Legacy, right? High Tide and Extended circa 1999 was the most pure and beautiful deck in the history of Magic the Gathering. The entire deck was just like Force of Wills and Counter Spells and Thawing Glaciers and Time Spirals and Impulses. It was just like, it was this deck that was nothing but perfect machinery and 10 out of 10 cards. And because it was so perfect, it had to win with a combo because there just wasn't room for playing Jackal Pup in that deck. Like there's just not room for the vibes of an attack phase. And so if you think about that, and then you compare it to Alurin, you're just like, hey man, what I think is beautiful is drawing one with a Wall of Blossoms and maybe getting a block in. Like I really like playing a non-basic land and tapping it for colorless mana. Like, if that is where your head is at, this is a version of that strategy that can also just combo kill the opponent on turn 4 or whatever. And that's just
turn 3.
The high. Yeah,
ideally.
That is the High Tide to its draw go.
I think it's kind of weird because, like, I don't really understand what's happening when you like resolve survival and then afterwards. Like you don't have Alurin, so like you're survivaling up Raven Familiars until you find Alurin.
Dude, it's also like, okay, imagine the things that we love, right? Like, and it's I love pre-modern, I love winning. No, what you love is deck touching. Okay, Raven Familiar is so much deck touching. It's an impulse for even more mana, and then you get to pay for it again. It is very in line with the things.
I mean, I guess that's the idea of this deck is that like the creatures that aren't Cavern Harpy and Spike Feeder are like cards that you can cast while you're waiting for your like Alurin to show up.
This deck has Manowar and Spike Feeder in it, right? Yeah. So come on, man. If you ever wanted to do anything more than just cast a Manowar, like casting a Manowar is like the apex of Magic the Gathering. Like,
yeah, Manowar is awesome. I definitely think Manowar could be like in a deck that doesn't contain Cavern Harpy. I actually don't think that Manowar is embarrassing. I think Manowar and Meddling Mage are like big draws to this deck, and I think Raven Familiar is actually like a little bit of a draw to the deck. I think that you still have these Spike Feeders that are kind of hanging around. And it's like
it's the same. You just gotta have a way to win. It's like, Sam Black's Tithe Gush deck still has like a Decree of Justice and another Spirit. Like you kind of. It's just it's like the classic Family Guy Lobster.
Okay, so neither of us are high on
Lobster.
Alurin. You're
No,
bringing up Sam's.
it's just not a good deck. But like it just scratches itches. If people have this itch, and it comes back to what I was saying before, we talk too much about decks and not enough about cards. And I think WotC put us in this spot by building the decks for us when they weren't supposed to. Okay, and that's why they keep getting shit wrong. They need to focus on the cards. You're just like talking about these decks as if it has identity, right? Like the identity is grafted on by the narratives that we have.
I think that that'll have to be a topic for another podcast. I kind of get what you're getting at here, and I think that there's kind of like an interesting thing where Premodern is exactly that, where the cards don't have apparent synergies, like kind of exactly the point that there's like, I guess, many variations of the Dreadnought deck. There's many variations of the Survival of the Fittest deck. There's many variations of the Oath deck, and like the way that people are taking it, kind of like has this like tapestry of variety, whereas if you're sort of cynical, you can kind of read it as just like, oh, Premodern has like a few pillars and that's just like the deal. But like I said, topic for another podcast. What do you think of Sam's deck? Do you think Sam's deck has the juice if somebody else starts, like if like, I don't know, a bunch of people started playing it?
So two things on Sam's deck. One, it got played at a league that I was at. I don't believe it won/completed any matches. So I love the deck personally. I just have not had a chance to play it because I mostly play in leagues, and I don't think that I could complete a match in the time allotted. I think that it does a lot of the things that I was trying to do with 23andMe. Maybe worse, maybe not as purely, but maybe more practically. And talking to Sam, I feel like, I mean, Sam is just on another island, right? Like, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. Like, Sam's underlying precepts are I'm better than my average opponent, and they just don't know when to concede, right? Like, if you have those as your underlying precepts, you're gonna have a very different idea about what makes a good deck than maybe I will, where I know that I'm not better than my average opponent, and I'd have to try to win anyway, right?
Yeah,
like
I was actually thinking about this, so I was just like, okay, so the best deck that you can play is one in which you win the most against people who are worse than you, and you upset the most people who are better than you. And so
and you actively don't play the best cards because they're not good against the decks you like, so you just ignore their existence. Like, this is, for me, I'm not arguing with Sam. Sam's better than me, right? But like, man, like, I hate to put it this way, but I very much subscribe to this sort of philosophy bifurcation that came in the late 90s, and John Finkel was on one side of it. And John Finkel was like, if I don't play any permanents that you can interact with or that you want to interact with, I have natural card advantage, right? Like, that's the John Finkel precept. And when John Finkel was winning tournaments with control decks, it's largely what he was doing. Although, to be fair, his first Pro Tour top 8, the only blue card in the 75 was Counterspell, which requires double blue. And it was a wild time. He had plenty of permanents. On the other side, so I really kind of embraced this. And Mike Dene had like a subset of this. And I think that in the Bougie Discord, actually, somebody posted Mike Dene's deck. He just had like Wall of Blossoms, and he's just like, I guess they can plow the Wall of Blossoms, but it's just not profitable. They don't really want to, right? So there was this whole like culture of, we're going to play control decks where we have natural card advantage because our opponent can't interact with any of our permanents because we don't have any, right? Our permanents are lands, right? Then you had this other side, and this created a very different paradigm for control decks that certainly you would never imagine having the John Finkel, Mike Dene sort of philosophy in 2025, 2026, if you're just only been exposed to post-fire design Magic, right? Adrian Sullivan said, that's nice. I believe there are permanents that are good enough to play. And he did things like innovate Oath of Druids, right? So Sam is on this weird place where the permanents that he was willing to play are like Scroll Rack and Mox Diamond, but not Oath of Druids. It's like, okay. Like, he's like, well, you you can't Ray of Revelation a Mox Diamond. And there's an argument to be made there. Like Lanny's go-to is like, oh, if I'm going to play against a deck that has these kinds of cards, my go-to solution is a Ray of Revelation. And I'm thinking, I'm like, that go-to solution doesn't work against Sam. It is so weird and backwards.
That's because Sam doesn't want to lose to me.
Doesn't want to lose.
It's like entirely the point.
It's like, I'm just not going to play. There's all these cards. You know, Sam was the first one who said to me, is like, can you think of a better card for a deck that has access to green mana to side in against a control deck than Sylvan Library? Like, that's actually a thing that he said to me in, I don't know, 2022, right? Like when, the story is he saw some Twitter posts that I made. He started brewing Premodern, right? And I don't think I had any Sylvan Libraries in my deck at the time. And I had never thought about it. So I'm like, I don't know. It seems like a pretty terrible card to be. Like, you pay 2 mana for the right to have a horrible, like, deep analysis sometime in the future, right? And obviously Sylvan Library has really taken off since then.
No, the correct answer is Call the Herd. Come on.
But Sam is now, he is a post Sam Black deck designer, right? He has gone from Sam Black to post Sam Black. Just like, no, we don't even Sylvan Library anymore. Right, we don't play anything that your opponent might be able to Ray of Revelation.
I get the point.
But
we're gonna put Sam Black on his own island in the meta game.
He's on an island, right? So here's the thing. I really want to play this deck, but I don't know when I would play it because you can't finish a league. I played 23andMe once, and I did not 3-0 the league, and I only won because my opponents just conceded out of frustration. Instead of like letting me continue. And my deck had more ways to win than Sam's deck.
Okay, well, fair enough. Last question. Gun to your head. You have to win LobsterCon. What deck are you going to play?
Kaplan Jam.
Okay.
I think Kaplan Jam rewards the tightest play the best.
What if you?
The disadvantage is you are at a disadvantage against someone who's as good as you who's also playing Dreadnought.
What if LobsterCon's like not tomorrow and you get a practice?
So I think Kaplan Jam is the answer, and one of the reasons I say this is Andy Vollmer, who is a very capable player, who was on blue-white land still, lost to Kaplan in the top 8 because of missequencing, right? And he's just, man, I missequenced this and this. I'm like, oh, this is obvious. You got to do this. He's like, I know that, right? I'm telling you the story with the framing that I did this in the wrong order. But the reality is, even if Andy had Thawing Glaciers and more cards in hand and everything, his answers all cost 2 and Kaplan's threats all cost 1. And that's really why I beat him, right? Because 0 and 1 casting cost cards, and Andy had to sequence. If Andy sequenced perfectly, probably would have beaten Dave, right? But he didn't. He cast his cards in the wrong order. Like, I think he cast Disenchants before counterspells or something, and then the counterspells didn't have any tags.
You've kind of become,
and that's against an excellent player.
Well,
right?
you've kind of become famous, or at least you often you are credited with saying that the deck to beat is often not the best deck to play in a tournament. So you're kind of going against your own advice here.
That is the thing that I have said. Yeah, but I've only ever played Dreadnought in a big tournament one time. And I did not come close to losing a match in the Swiss. I still don't know how I lost my top 8 match on the play. And I think that I could correct that by not playing accumulated knowledge. So I could take away tools from myself so that I won't keep a hand that looks like it has promise. Right. And I think like part of the problem is if you have a paradigm that's just like, I am going to mulligan with great focus and discipline. But then you look at this hand, you're just like, well, this might be able to get there.
Yeah. Okay. I understand that. But I
take away from myself.
My question to you
is taking carbs out of your pantry. I don't have any carbs in my pantry.
I understand. My question to you is, why are you sort of reneging on playing the deck to beat as the best deck for the tournament? Like, why do you think the deck to beat is also the best deck for the tournament in this case?
Let's see. Let's look at,
wouldn't the Mike Flores way be like some sort of like counter deck that had 10 sideboard cards for Dreadnought that they'd never seen before?
So first LobsterCon I played a great deck, I think, relatively speaking. I mean, replenished decks have gotten better, right? But my deck was good, and no one could beat my squeak combo, right? Like that was pretty awesome, I think. So that second LobsterCon I played, I did this thing that you're saying right now. Like Dreadnought was the deck to beat, and I played a deck that was good against Dreadnought, and went I went to time a bunch of times. Like I think I had 3 unintentional draws that I had basically won all of them. My opponents didn't concede. Right? So like that was, frustrating. Then I came in second in the consolation tournament the next day. And then the third LobsterCon I played the deck that I'm best at, and I almost top 8'd. I lost in the last round after being up a game. But that was a lot of work. I can tell you, Dreadnought and Red are similar in that everybody knows they exist and everybody's ready for them. And I was perfectly ready to play Red, and I beat everybody's sideboard cards. I knew how to do it, right? But it's a lot of work, Lanny. And winning with Dreadnought is so much less work, especially in game 1.
I think it also could just be a testament to like a little bit of a stagnation effect that's happening in Premodern. Obviously not enough to like cause concern. We're still having tons of fun. But like one of the things that is happening is that it is probably easier to play Dreadnought than to try to figure out how to like beat a tournament that has like a lot of Dreadnought, but also a bunch of random other nonsense you just feel like
I'm trying to do the Netflix model here, right? Like when Netflix gives you an offer, they don't negotiate because they're like, our offer assumes all of the things that you're going to try to say to me. Okay. Like here's my Netflix offer to you. The new version of LobsterCon that sells out in 96 seconds is a 2-day long tournament, not a 1-day long tournament. Okay. I think that I'm better than I was when I was younger because I'm in better shape and I've more control over my diet and stuff like that. But like not having wear and tear on my brain in a tournament that's going to go many rounds over 2 days is actually going to be a factor that's going to help me win. And if my opponents are more fatigued and I'm less fatigued, I think like mistakes versus rest is gonna be helpful to me. And then the other thing is,
well, then you shouldn't play the blue deck, right? Because then you're gonna have to play a bunch of mirrors and then just
I'm really good at executing with Dreadnought. The things that I'm not good at are like, I saw 2 accumulated knowledges. I think.
Okay. Okay.
Like I have out controlled tide control a bunch of times on Dreadnought, right? Like I just knew how to get my spells in. Those are the things I'm pretty good at. The things I'm bad at are the things I'm actually worst at are the longer the game goes, especially if I'm way ahead, I give up a lot of games, and I always have, right? I'm like, there's the famous story that I was telling Rich Shea. I'm like, I could not imagine how Andy Probosco could beat me, but Andy Probosco could imagine it, right? And I lost a slot because of that in the finals. Like, and I'm like, okay, I set up this game plan. I'm just ahead every turn. I'm getting further and further ahead, right? But he found a way to jam through. I couldn't, and that's the quote. I can't imagine losing, but he could imagine how he could win. So if I can play short games, right, or I can control resources early, that's the best for me. Like, I mean, not to talk about stuff from my other podcast or anything. Like, I look at like my trajectory in Pauper. My win rate in Pauper is insane. But if you look at the games that I lose, it's because the game went so long that my plan is no longer cohesive, right? Like if I could keep my plan cohesive, I think I have a high likelihood of being able to beat anyone, right? But I don't think I'm supposed to play these like 20 turn long Flash of Insight thwart Dreadnought games. That's
you're still gonna have Flash of Insight because
no, but like you know what I'm saying? Like these thwart games with one gush, right? I'm going to be like, okay, did I have the jam? Does my opponent have resistance? How many free spells do I have back? I want my opponents to be the one who's bitching at the end of he had 2 interaction. How many times have any of us complained that the other guy had 2 interaction? His deck is nothing but 2 interaction. Okay? Like
I actually normally am on the Dreadnought side. I'm like, I can't believe they had 4 removal spells, and then I'm like on to the next one.
Look, it's one of the 2, right? Like
right, so,
I only had 3.
So I think that between now and LobsterCon, I have 2 attitudes. One is that I could become the best Dreadnought player I've ever, and I would just be like, I would just like lock in and just like figure out the deck. I think I have the resources to like do the thing. However, the competition is like several people who also only think about Dreadnought all the time, and they actually have a head start on me. So I don't think I can outwork some of those people. The people I do think that I might be able to outwork are the Elves players, and I think that I could bring
Oh man,
something to Elves. I haven't figured it out so far, but I think that with
you know
5
I love
months,
elves. Okay, I
I think with
freaking
5 months,
love
I think
elves.
I can break Elves. I think
Dude, you can't break just somebody playing Oath of Druids twice, right? Like that's the problem. Okay, imagine the worst things for Dreadnought. The worst things for Dreadnought, all right, it's somebody who had 4 removal. But like you could still beat them. You can slow play them. You can accumulate cards in your hand. You
well,
can force them to not have enough mana
I
to
mean,
cast all of their.
to be completely clear, like the worst nightmare for Dreadnought is like Rich Shay Enchantress, and I think demonstrably so. Like that the Rich Shay Enchantress deck has just been meat grinding Dreadnought. Like people have been stealing,
It's worse than ever.
people stealing a few match wins here and there. Uh, do I think that Oath of Druids
Lanny, how
is
do you beat Rich Shay with that deck?
with the Siphonaut deck?
With Dreadnought, yeah.
You, you cross your fingers, man.
You jam and hope,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't play one of these. Like literally, I was at a 1K and this kid loses to Enchantress and he just starts talking to me. He actually ended up beating me at Sacred Torch on Dreadnought. He's like, this is like a not winnable matchup, and I'm like, look, it's not a winnable matchup if you play it like a matchup. Like, this is what you're going to try to do. You can't really win. They can't really win game 1, right? If you understand the matchup, you either get them with deck exhaustion, or you can sometimes jam and beat them, right? They're gonna win game 2, right? This is like that scene in Taken where Liam Neeson's on the phone with his daughter's just like, you're gonna get taken. What you need to do is tell me all the things that you can so that I can come try to get you, but you're gonna get taken. Okay. They're gonna take you. This doesn't mean lie down. Like you fight, but they're gonna take you. Game 3, you're gonna be on the play. Mulligan to the jam and hope they don't have you. That's how you win the matchup. He's like, that's it. I'm like, you can't win a strategic matchup. Like if they get their resources and you get their resources, they draw 3 cards a turn, 2 of which are Swords to Plowshares.
Okay,
Like,
I am obviously understanding of this, and I think that the end result is just like blending down to like Dreadnought is going to win maybe 20% of the time. I'm using that to identify the fact that like Dreadnought has its weaknesses. Elves does too. Like granted, like Elves against like Iggy Pop. We didn't get to talk about Iggy Pop, but Iggy Pop is going crazy. LSV played it. LSV actually kind of playing a list with like Urza's Bauble that like looked crazy, and like instantaneously like understanding exactly how to play the deck was like kind of a thing of beauty, because he didn't seem to understand how to play Dreadnought, which was like a really funny other side of the coin. Like this brain freeze deck.
Are these all on YouTube?
All on YouTube.
I only saw his Psychic Talk once. I was gone for the holiday.
So, but yeah, I think that Elves has tons of potential, and it also is good but not great against Dreadnought. But I think that there's still something there. Like I think there's still just a combination of cards for Elves that could make it not the deck to beat, but the deck to beat play the meta game, like the LobsterCon deck. Yeah.
If I'm on Elves, I feel like I only know this because I've beaten Kaplan a bunch of times. But like, I think I could beat any Dreadnought player in the world if I'm on Elves, right? Like, so I like it from that perspective. I think that I'm generally behind against a competent burn player, right? So I think that is a generous way of phrasing it.
Yeah. No, but that's my point. Like this, we're playing to win the tournament, right? So we kind of have this belief that the burn players are going to start falling off at a certain point because Dreadnought is so popular.
The last LobsterCon I played, there were multiple burn players in contention in the last round.
No, I understand, but things change, and like the most recent LobsterCon burn was outside of top 16, might have been outside of top 32 in 2025.
Okay, so and it's consistently doing great online. So second best total performances and wins a fair amount of the Swiss top 8 tournament.
I will say I will be pleasantly surprised if after a pretty quiet LobsterCon 2025, Burn comes back with a vengeance in 2026.
So whether you're going to say that or not, have we yet reached the universe where Burn isn't the most popular deck at LobsterCon? Because it's always been the most popular every time.
No. This year Dreadnought was the most popular deck.
Okay. So like I said, I think I can beat any Dreadnought player if I'm playing elves. So I think like that's a feather to cap. But the thing that I don't like is, to me, this is a modern burn versus dredge thing. Like, just can't beat. I don't want to be in a tournament where I play against Oath of Druids multiple times if I'm playing elves. Like I just,
But you
it's
can.
not that you can never win. It's just it is I would rather be burn against burn's worst matchups where I'm like, I'm me and this deck are one, like I'm gonna find a way. Like I'm gonna trick this guy into necroing too hard, right? Like I'm super in that place. I'm elves. I'm like, dude, he just played an oath.
No,
Dude,
I understand. I
watched
understand.
Nick Mayo play against
Mike, I
Oath of
understand.
Druids in
I understand,
Quiet
Mike. I get it.
Speculation,
I
and
get
it
it.
was
But
he had no
listen,
chance.
at the end of the day, one, the quiet speculation deck has quieted down a little bit, and like for the most part, like yeah, don't get me wrong. If your deck is like all quiet spec, volcanic spray, and Oath of Druids, you're gonna have a bad time. But if it's just Oath Ponza and they just have 4 Oath of Druids and 4 Pyroclasm, like look, I can board in 6 disenchants and I can recover from the Pyroclasm with my like other stuff going on. I can resolve my survival of the fittest.
Mana.
Well, they can't board in all that stuff and be still blowing up my lands, and they typically don't blow up lands at the same rate, because you have like the creatures. But regardless, I'm not saying that the odds are great for elves against Oath Ponza, but I'm just saying like if I'm going, I don't think I'm going to play against Oath Ponza twice. I think I might play against an Oath deck once, and I might be able to steal it. And if that's the trade-off for feeling pretty good against Dreadnought and feeling pretty good against all mid-range and control decks because of the power of survival of the fittest, then, count me at like, I would feel good against Sam's deck to some extent. So,
Really?
I mean, I wouldn't feel great, but if you
I think
have,
I would say Sam's deck only has like 2 wraths, and I think like a lot of Sam's victories
he has
come
one
from,
disenchant main deck, so
I thought it was an abolish.
it is an abolish, a disenchant effect, yeah.
So I mean, Sam's deck is, if I ever get a chance to play it, I'll just maybe write a tournament report or something. It is a work of mad genius, like not just a regular work of genius. Like who plays foil but not counterspell, right? Like this is insane. And Sam's just like so confident. He's just like, I think we should take out the Armageddons and just win by recurring foils. Just foil them more. And I'm like, wow, this is something else.
Yeah.
8 planes, 8 islands. Let's go.
All right. Well,
8 basic planes, Lanfang.
well, that's I think that's Spike Colony for 2025. I mean, I think on the last note, thank you for listening, and we will see you in 2026. And I don't know, this is an exciting time for Premodern, so thanks for playing Premodern.
Yeah, love Mike.
Love Spike Colony.